a lot of that challenging behaviors is met with isolation because I don't want to have to work with a challenging behavior. It's hard, but having that understanding that there is an unmet need, how can I help you find that need? I'm not finding it for you. I'm supporting you and helping you navigate what that is. I'm Alejandro.
I'm Mordekai.
And I'm Crissy. And we're Youth-era.
So what are we doing here?
So hi everybody. This is our first ever podcast on youth peer support from Youth-era, which is like, who's Youth-era? What are we doing?
Yeah, who are they?
What are they? Well, I'll start.
Sure.
So we at Youth-era provide peer-delivered services for youth around the state. I really love the motto and everything that it's about of be who you needed.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're about here and hopefully what we can provide as well for you as listeners.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think some of the things I love most about Youth-era is the fact that like so everything that you all are hearing today, and if you watch this podcast that you're going to see is because we work at Youth-era. We've had a lot of like benefits. Today you'll hear from us like who we are as like a training team and as folks who are now trying to do some podcasting. And we want to tell you just a little bit about, I guess like the history and get into peer support. But before we do that, I feel like we should intro ourselves.
So I guess I can go first.
Run that. Who are you?
So I'm Mordekai. So I am a part of this training team, this beautiful team, and have a background as an online youth peer support specialist. So a little bit unique. Who else would like to share?
I can go. Yeah. So my name is Crissy. My pronouns are she, hers. I have been with Youth-era for like 6 years now. It's been phenomenal and amazing. I'm also part of this training team and have been a youth peer support specialist in the past. Now I currently just train other folks how to become a certified youth peer support, which hopefully during this podcast, we'll talk a little bit about what does training look like too, and what are the pieces that you need to learn and have to be a successful peer support. But yeah, that's me. Love being here. Love trying this out to do a podcast. So if you're listening, we're just super thankful for you and glad that you're tuning in.
Yes. And I am Alejandro. I am also a trainer consultant here. We are a powerhouse of a team, and that is non-biased opinion. I've been here for about 3 years now, and I'm honestly loving it. I've never learned as much as I have in the time that I have at a place. In terms of just like being patient, what it's like to work with people who are undergoing crisis or in preventative needs for crisis. And then just being able to take all of my lived experience and put that on the training team and then help other people do what I do is really cool.
Awesome. So like while you were talking, I was listening and I was thinking about for our listeners, maybe we could share individually what do we hope folks would maybe gain from this 6-part series podcast. And so I guess I could kick it off. That's easy. For me, I think I would love for people to listen to this podcast over, the 6 sessions. And I would hope that like by the end of it, that they felt like very seen in their position. So like if they are currently a youth peer support specialist, maybe there's someone who is looking for peer support or someone who wants to have that type of position. I want them to feel like at the end, like, oh man, I just learned so much, or I have walked away with like value and caring about this type of role, or maybe even get some insight on how to get a role like peer support. What about you guys?
Love that. So I think what I envision people walking away with ideally is in part to know that like, one, there are good people out there that want to help other people, that are not just there to like take advantage of people, or, have a very like heavy like power dynamic that exists in a lot of other professions when you're working with people directly.
Right.
That we're trying to meet people as an equal, to know that there is no one way to do peer support, and that it is so individualized, and how one provides that is really largely based on who that individual is as they are. Yeah.
Very
I
cool.
think what else? Yeah.
No, I really
I'm
love
sure there's
that.
more. Yeah.
I love that. That's tough for me. Those were both of my answers.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah.
It was it's a lot of validation in the work that you do, whether you're interested in it or you're already in it. It's that validation that it is individualized. There isn't necessary. I mean, there's definitely a wrong way to do it, but
I wonder if we'll talk about that too.
I feel like that would be a good topic. But in the way that you're doing it, if your intentions are there, it's fine tuning it to where it can be translated to, my intentions are good and I hope that I can be here for you in your time of need.
Right.
Yeah, that's been a lot about our organization. Why are we doing what we do?
Oh, like us.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So, something that I think has been pretty central to most of the trainings that we've given, we ask this, what's your why? Why are you here? Right. And so a lot of people have spoken about wanting to be there for people who've gone through similar things that they've gone through, because they could have used that help. And I feel like that's been pretty central to most people that we have like talked to, is wanting to show up as if they were working with their younger selves again. And so I don't know if that's true for y'all, but I definitely feel for myself that I don't ever want another person, and obviously this is a huge goal, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't want another person to feel alone. I don't want them to feel like they have to go through it all by themselves and figure it all out by themselves without any help, because that's pretty hard. So yeah, I think ideally I would love to be able to, like, that's the vision going into this job, is to be able to make sure that, people know that someone's in their corner and is going to validate what they're going through in case they don't have anybody else in the world that's doing that for them.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying all of that, because, I think about, like what would be my why. When I was younger, I didn't really have that. I didn't have somebody to really kind of just validate me, I would say would be a big part of it. I mean, maybe that's why, like, even as an adult, like, seeking validation is still very present for me, right? Because it's not something that was present as I was younger. And I think for me now, being someone who has peer support and is now training others, it's like a huge goal of mine that we are leaning into that, and we are remembering what it was like if we didn't have those experiences, drawing in. And I think especially within Youth Era, our teams have worked really hard to hone in on those experiences. And even though as a peer, you may not have the same exact experience as someone else, a lot of the times we can relate on how we're feeling. We can relate on how it did feel. So I really feel like that advocacy piece and that validation piece, that's a lot of the why I'm here. I guess in a weird way, it's like almost full circle. It's like you didn't get it when you were younger. Now you're inclined to put it out because you know what it feels like to not receive that.
Yeah. And that validation piece is a huge part in just feeling like I belong, right? Or that I'm good where I'm at. I love that you said that. How candid can I be on here?
I mean, I feel like we should be candid. I think that what's going to make this podcast different for those of you listening is we want to be real, as if we were training, So I think be candid.
Cool. Okay. So youth peer support, rad. Love it. Give you the building blocks. If I could provide that for every youth, just so that they can be here for their friends, their peers, their communities, that would be rad. Being an adult, sucks. I want a little bit of a break sometimes. So like my roommates, my friends, we're all going through it. And that's just because we never had this opportunity to have peer support. So a lot of the times, included, I'll be guilty in this. I feel like I don't have the space to go to my friends to be like, hey, I'm going through it. So I want to provide the space where it's okay to do that. And I want to teach other people that you're good being vulnerable. Like, please be vulnerable, because that allows everyone to know how you are. And if you're not doing good, I would like to know so that I can make you not so shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's really important about that is authenticity.
Yeah.
I feel like through peer support or through even just like things like this, right? Like we're modeling out to the world that it's okay to be authentic. Like, please do, like, embrace that, embrace the fact that you have feels, embrace the fact that life is not easy by any means. And that's okay. And that's what makes us human. And we kind of need that humanness back.
So I want to ask this question to y'all, because as you were talking about this, it kind of made me think, like, you sharing how important it is to be vulnerable and you sharing how important it is to be authentic.
Yeah.
What are some of the things as a peer support that you learned because of the work that we're doing? And because we're kind of going over this stuff a lot and we're seeing this in a lot of other people, what are some things or lessons that have like really stuck with you?
I love that question. Well, I'm like literally thinking it while you're talking, and I'm like, hold on, let me stay in level 2 listening. So honestly, learning about the different types of listening levels that there are, and it's just really important because it's like taught me also to listen to myself. And I think that is a really important lesson. Yeah, even in my own chatter in my head, having a voice in there that can be pretty negative. It's like, I need to listen to the truer heart of me, which is a more loving being, right? And so having those levels of listening with self and then having those levels of listening with other folks just draws in on that authenticity.
Would you mind maybe just for the listeners, just sharing what level 2 listening is?
Yeah. So for everyone listening, we teach that there's 3 levels of listening. The first level, I think many of us can relate to being in, as we're hearing someone speak, but we're really listening to kind of like respond. This often can happen. Like if you're just excited to say the next thing, or if you're maybe in debate, you want to say that next thing. So you're in that level 1. Level 2 is what I'm kind of referencing here today, which is where you're really listening to someone with an intention to hear, with empathy, right? You want to hear, what are they expressing to me right now? What are they feeling? Rather than thinking about what's next for you. So for peer support, that's like the golden space that we want to be. And then there is a 3rd level of listening. That's also called global listening. That is where we're kind of like reading the room. So for our peer supports who might work in like a drop-in space or might work in like a clinic, you kind of need to have that level 3 global listening, because you need to be able to kind of read the room. You could be speaking with someone for your one-on-one, but notice that there's maybe chaos going off into the next side of the room. So you need to have that global listening. But yeah, that's 3 levels of listening right there.
Yeah. What's the vibe? What's the vibe of the room?
Yeah.
I loved what you shared too, Crissy, about how that also taught you how to like listen to yourself. That was really beautiful insight.
Oh, thank you.
What about you, Alejandro?
Back on the spot, because I was going to say, I had the conversation today with my roommates about levels of listening and just like how important that is to not necessarily remove yourself from the situation, just be present with it. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, you told me this. How am I going to respond? How can I fix it? A lot of it is just going to be like, hey, I hear where you're coming from. Let's talk about that. So finding that sweet spot is what I found really valuable in my time here. And also that a lot of the times people just want to be heard. I don't want a solution. If I'm coming to you with a problem, it's not because I want it solved. It's because I need to tell someone that there's a problem, and being okay with not being the answer person, but being the person that's like, I'm so glad that you came to me. So finding value in how people confide in me is what I learned a lot in that.
I love that. I love that.
And that's hard, right? Because I think we're all like natural problem solvers. So we hear a problem, we're like, all right, what can I do to solve your pain, your discomfort, right?
Yeah.
But like, that's also not our job. That's not for us to do. That's that person's lesson and journey. And we can support them along the way, right? But yeah, that is important.
That's really important. I love what you just said too. Oh my gosh, this podcast is going to be like, I love what you said. I love what you said. But about it being someone's journey, that is so important. Like, it does remind me of another tool from peer support, which is like this zone of helpfulness. So to describe it for our listeners is like, if you can imagine a scale, so to speak, that's horizontal. On the left-hand side, you'd see like just under involved, which I mean, that can look like what? Like just not even listening to the person you're trying to support. That can look like not even answering texts, etc. And then you have like in the center where you're like involved, like you've got the zone of helpfulness. You're seeking to guide somebody and help someone and listen with that empathy. Whereas if you wanted to be on the right-hand side of the scale, over involved, then you're looking at experiencing their lessons for them. So see, that's why I love what you said, because I could picture that in there. And it's like, yeah, if we're just solving people's problems all the time, then that life lesson never comes. Right. That journey doesn't get to continue. I love that we're talking about this the way we are, because even for me right now, I feel like I'm learning differently things that we talk about and teach.
A different lens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's all about perspective.
So I wanted to share some of the things that I guess I had taken away or I had learned a lot in this journey of being a peer support. And part of that is really the compassion aspect, like next level compassion and questioning my own biases around things. So we said one thing in Peer Plus in the very beginning, and it was all challenging behavior stems from unmet needs. Right. And then I sat with that and I was thinking about it and I was like, actually, most people don't do just about anything without having a reason. So actually, really most behaviors stem from an unmet need. And we can see that in like both the positive and the negative. So the way that I've explained it to folks in the past is like, if I want to give somebody a hug, that might be seen as a quote unquote positive behavior, so long as I got consent from the other person. But the unmet need is perhaps feeling a desire for closeness and connection. It's still meeting an unmet need because I want to feel close to someone. So if, let's say it's more on like the challenging aspect, the challenging side, like I lied to somebody. So that also comes from an unmet need. On face value, I might have, pre-becoming a peer support, I might have had a lot less compassion and understanding for why somebody would lie, because it's still not nice. It's still kind of disrespectful, right? But now I'm asking why. Instead of just looking at the what, I'm asking, why is that here? Why are they lying? Because maybe that means that they're trying to protect a part of themselves. Maybe something inside of themselves feels afraid. It helps me understand people a lot better and have a lot more grace for people.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And that also goes to like a similar thought that I have, which is there are no such thing as bad people. Mm-hmm. There are such things as bad actions.
Yes.
And my history in working in criminal justice, I found a lot of validation in that of I don't have to support the action, but I can still support the person because it is very isolating. So knowing that you have that sense of someone has my back, even with that, and then hoping that they can also help find my unmet need. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of that challenging behaviors is met with isolation, because I don't want to have to work with a challenging behavior. It's hard, but having that understanding that there is an unmet need, how can I help you find that need? I'm not finding it for you. I'm supporting you and helping you navigate what that is. Similar to what you were saying, Crissy, it's about that journey.
Yeah, I love that. All this is so rich. because, you know, a takeaway from what I'm hearing is also like, because we've learned these things, right? We've learned these skills and tool sets. For us at Youth Area, you know, our population that we support, you know, is kind of ages like 14 to 25, just for our listeners out there. When you're younger or a young adult going through these things for the first time, and perhaps there are some bad decisions that are being made or choices. And I think with this type of work and doing peer support and what you're just talking about, it normalizes life. It normalizes that like literally no one is perfect. It normalizes figuring out and strategizing. Okay, we realize, and it teaches people, like for me, for example, even as an adult, it has taught me to have grace, like with myself, when even my decisions aren't showing up to be the best, right? And I know what's good for me, right? It's not about what's healthy, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. It's about what's I know is best for me. And the normalization that I've gotten through these skill sets that we're talking about, that we've learned, has been really great. And like when I think about how we put that back out to the youth that we're serving, I've seen literal almost like shoulders relaxed in young people, where they're like, you're not a terrible person, right? You are literally a beautiful, strong, overcoming person. You know, we focus in and we dial in on those strengths in somebody. And I feel like what you're talking about, Alejandro, just really kind of draws that back in.
I feel like that's also a barrier that happens a lot with youth now, is that it's like a labeling theory.
Yes.
Where if I am told that I am a bad person enough, whether I believe it or not, I will eventually become that, because it's the self-fulfilling prophecy that society has embedded into youth themselves. It's better seen, not heard, and we're changing that narrative 100%. We value everything that you have to say.
Yes.
We want to be here to listen, and we want to be here to guide you on your journey through life, because you said it perfect. No one is perfect. And it's that validation, and what I think a lot more people need to hear is that perfection is never going to exist.
Right.
So how can we be fine with that ideology and still have the ideology that I myself am perfect the way that I am? So I feel like I counteracted my point by saying perfection never exists, but I have to be perfect to me. It's just like saying I can be okay with not being okay.
Straight up. Yeah.
That's a hard lesson to learn too.
Yeah.
It's like, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of us can relate that like we don't want to feel bad things, right? Like we don't want to feel like crap, right?
Who wants that?
Right? Yeah, right. So like when it comes down to it though, if we also aren't like acknowledging all of our like seasons and where we're at, then we're not able to really help ourselves the best in moving through those things, because we're just wanting to like numb, or we're just wanting to distract or like separate ourselves from what we're actually like feeling and going through. And I think that has personally been like a huge part of my own journey of like, yes, it is okay to not be okay, but it doesn't mean that this is going to be forever. Like it is for now, have to be with this, feel it through, and then I will move through it. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I do too. I think this whole conversation is like I said, I feel like the lenses are changing, and like I'm just thinking about things that we teach. You know, you're talking about not wanting to seek perfection, and I love that. And I feel like goal setting and like grace go together. And I think that, you know, we've been teaching for a while now. We've been teaching our new peer supports about wanting to look into what are the things that someone has going for them, and what are the things that perhaps are needs, or like things that they need to build up in their life. And I love how like thinking about like not perfection, but aiming for what is the best version of myself look like.
Right.
Right. And again, like that just normalization of the fact that we're all on that continuous journey. You know, I feel like peer support just keeps going. I don't think it's just for young folks. It's like, for me, I love being, you talked about it with your roommates, right? Like, or your friends. I do feel that way, where you might be going through a challenge, but for some reason, going to your friend feels different than if you go to someone who is, I guess because they're removed, right? They're removed out of the situation. If they are wanting to provide peer support, they are going to be able to practice these skills with you. They are going to be able to kind of listen in a different way. And so I forget where I was going with that, but I like it.
I like it. I was on the edge of my seat. I was tuned into that.
See, we were going somewhere, but
I do have a question for you though.
Okay.
Because you were talking about your journey, do you mind sharing some of like how you got to be here where you are today?
Mm-hmm. Like here as a trainer, like at Youthera?
Like, how did you get into this seat right in front of me?
Dude, that's such a long podcast. And how did I, to put it, I guess, part of peer support is lived experience. So my lived experience is a lot. So I was born in Honduras. And from there all the way to where I am today, there was a lot of different challenges, obviously being a first generation immigrant, being adopted being adopted by parents that don't look like me, right? So that whole journey, and I really can't describe it all at length in this podcast, maybe a different place you guys can learn that. But the way that I kind of got here was I had to go through all those experiences that when I was younger, I hated my life. I was very suicidal. And it wasn't until I actually had a friend who had worked at Youthera. And they were like, there's no one else who should work at Youthera, because they had known my experiences. They're like, you can relate to a lot of young people. We think you should apply. And from there, I applied. I ended up getting the job because of those experiences. And that's where it was almost like a realistic shift inside of me that I used to see myself as invaluable. This job really helped me. Oh, I'm going to get emotional. This job really helped me to see that I had a lot of value, actually more so than I think I could have ever understood, because of those situations and because of my willingness to learn. And so basically I kind of just loved the work. I loved that it validated me, which was something I was looking for a long time. I loved my coworkers and still do. And kind of just had to learn the peer support ins and outs to the T, had to learn some of the things we'll talk more about in these 6 sessions, but had to learn a lot about those building blocks and how to utilize that lived experience. It's one thing to know that you have all that experience, but you got to learn how to utilize it, and how can you empower others with it, and how can you really practice that listening. So through just that journey and through awesome supervision from our leaders here at Youthera, and being able to get this position now, which is on the training team, and I'm with you guys and I love it.
Very nice. It's a nice journey.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Mordekai, do you care to go second?
I guess
Since we're here, we might as well.
We are diving in.
Well, I think it is important to talk about, because a whole part of peer support is to be relatable through one's lived experience. So I think that's super fair. I had struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts and attempts and hell anxiety. I mean, honestly, alphabet soup of things. But I found my path. I found my way through it after about 10 years, which was hard. I'm also trans, so trans man. So I have that lived experience. And something that I have found being trans is that it's so important to have community. It's so important to have people who can just get it. You don't got to explain anything to, that they are just yep, I get it, Anyways, had some community. I moved away from the community to come out to Oregon, beautiful Oregon. And when I was out here, I had this feeling that I needed to do more. I was in a screen printing job, love screen printing, but it's not very soul fulfilling. It's not I'm not giving, I'm actually creating more waste. So that doesn't feel great. So I had this vision, actually was looking at like youth peer support specialist jobs, and it's like, oh, I don't know if now is the right time. And so I stopped, and like 10 months later, I was like, all right, I really need to get out of this job. And then I had this like little voice in my brain, and it was like, what about that youth peer support specialist job? I was like, huh, okay. And then I just happened to look things up, and Youth Era had this online youth peer support specialist job. And wham, bam, balam, I was in. It was awesome. And now I've been here for 4.5 years. I've had a trans mass support group where I've been able to help build community for other trans mass folks in Oregon. And it's been super beautiful. And just living in authenticity every day. So
I love that. Living in authenticity is also just the tagline. I love that.
yeah.
I know this has to have that as the tag.
Yeah, that's the tag.
Alejandro.
It's your turn.
I'm going to be honest. I have no idea how I got here.
You just showed up.
Yeah. I grew up in a predominantly white city, a very rich white city. I was biracial, Latino and white. So I fit in with half the people who excommunicated me, and then I fit in with the other half who also excommunicated me. I found my nice niche of friends, and they are truly my ride or dies. They are my brothers and sisters too. I don't want to leave anybody out. A lot of it was living in invalidation, where I wasn't good enough to fit one side, and then they told me I was overreacting, and then the same thing on the other. So it was a lot of like, I don't know where to be. And shout out to my mom for helping me do that. She provided peer support for me of just like, I'm not going to solve anything for you. And no way, you're a strong, independent man, and I'm a strong, independent woman. So I'm going to provide you the building blocks to do this. And she got me into feeling comfortable with exploring my passions. At first, I wanted to be a doctor, and I suck at math, so that was not happening. So I followed in the footsteps and then joined the sheriff's office and law enforcement. And that was a road in itself, had a lot of positives, a lot of negatives. But I really wanted to work with youth. And at the end of my time at the sheriff's office, I found this job that I applied immediately, and I was terrified. I even gave my interview for this position while I was in uniform at the sheriff's office. I just went outside in the parking lot.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, hey, like my vest is still on and everything. And I was like, it's just been a long day. This is just how I wear clothes. But I got the job, and it has opened my eyes that people grew up just like I did, and feeling that they don't belong, no matter your background of age, race, creed, gender, none of that matters. It's if you don't feel like you belong, I want to provide you the places and the space to feel like you can be validated in whatever you're feeling. And that's how I got here, is just, I don't want people to feel like I did growing up. It kind of sucked. So making that better for them is what my life's passion is.
Do you feel like you belong here?
Oh yeah, this is great. And I say it a lot too, of just like, this is a very different environment for me, and I feel seen, heard, and valued, and like my word means something here. So it's really cool to get to work with a team where like I see where my words go.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yay. So see, folks, that there's possibilities out there to live a life of validation, you know? And I think this podcast is going to succeed because we are spreading really good word right now. I hope for whoever's listening too, you know, I feel called to say that you are valued. And if you're listening, you know, we're here at Youth Era, so you can always reach out to us as well. But, you know, learning all these skills will not only benefit you if you are a peer, but will benefit you even for yourself if you're not certified, like peer support, like learning these things that we're talking about and getting comfortable sharing. You know, a lot of people, you know, that I meet out outside of our, field of work, speaking so openly and like vulnerably about your experiences isn't always the easiest. And so I think what we're doing here is like kind of opening the door that it's okay to say and share those things that maybe previously you felt you were not desirable because of. We're here to say you are. Like you've just become way more desirable because of all these things that you've experienced in your past, and you can really lead someone through.
I like how that kind of connects to what Brené Brown talks about with vulnerability and building trust, and that you can't actually build trust with somebody unless someone decides to take the leap of vulnerability first. So like it is so important to lean into it, even though it's uncomfortable and it can be a little bit scary. Like something that has kind of sat with me is that nobody can reject me for my truth, because if I know that it's true and somebody can't receive that, I'm still okay.
Yeah.
So even just starting small and sharing what it is that you feel comfortable with sharing. But being vulnerable is a huge part of how we connect and how we build relationships with everybody.
Okay, now I have a question.
Oh, okay.
That, yeah, you both asked. Now it's my turn. My question is, let's rewind back to when we were first youth peer supports. What maybe kind of challenges did you face? And I guess we're on the topic of kind of like that lived experience. So what challenges did you maybe face? And then like what guided you to overcome?
Okay, so I can share on this. What I love about this work too is that it helps me grow as an individual outside of my work, or highlights areas of growth that I have. So
shout out to that.
Yeah, that's facts.
Yeah. So something that I had struggled with at that time was not having great boundaries with myself, where I was like perpetual people pleaser. Let me bend over backwards and then light myself on fire just so that you're happy. So like that was what I was doing with some of my caseload, is where I would be working way late into the evening, way beyond my work hours when I should have been, taking on so much more to try to help this person, which is really moving into that over-involved like space, because I'm trying to show up and I can't be the resource, right? Like I have to be a part of a team. I can help them find the resources, but I'm not the resource. So, kind of having some of these experiences of feeling like I was trying to give so much, I cared so much, not having enough boundaries with myself in the work, not having enough boundaries with the people that I'm working with, left me in a space where I was, I guess, feeling a bit more like burnt out, or just so like emotionally invested in the well-being of the people that I'm working in that I'm not really able to work effectively with them. And so I had to, learn through the course of some of these connections and kind of how things unfolded that, okay, what is actually going to create safety is not whatever happens, and whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. In the context of our work together, it was, okay, having some level of structure and boundaries actually does create safety, because they know what to expect. I know what to expect, and then we can kind of hold each other accountable in that. So I think that was a huge catalyst to my journey in learning boundaries for myself, and that it's okay to have them.
Boundaries are self-care, and that's the tweet.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be completely honest. I forgot the question.
Oh, so yeah, like what are the things that you learned like early on in your peer support, like maybe the first years, for 6 months, that you're able to then take away something from?
That's why I forgot the question. I felt like I was the outlier in this. I started during COVID.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that.
So everything that was trained was not for me.
Right.
Because we did in-person, like the training that was given to me as if I was giving my services in person. and it was all virtual. So it felt like I needed to take the foundations and the building blocks that was given to me here and then make it my own. So, and that's why in a lot of the trainings that I provide, it's like, what else can this tool that we give you provide as a service? So for like the change ruler that we do on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to make this change? I use that with everything, and it doesn't even have to do with change. It's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely am I to do laundry? If I need to do it, it's going to be an 8. But if not, I'm not doing that. Folding sucks. But I use a lot of the things that we are taught, and then just have conversations like this with the youth that I've worked with to be like, hey, it's okay to feel like this. How can we flip it on its head? And then similar to what you were saying is that everything that I was learned and having these conversations with youth, seeing their perspective of how it's used on them opened my eyes immediately. And something that a youth told me that has stuck with me a lot is that you're given a toolbox. You're not necessarily supposed to always think outside of the box. Look inside the box and see how else those tools can be used.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, for me, challenges, man. When I very first became a peer, I think for me, similarly to you, Mordekai, was really absorbent like a sponge, right? I'm a very, I have a lot of empathy. I'm a empath. And I was just absorbing what my youth were going through as if it was me going through it again, which is really important, I think, because it could be on levels of like vicarious trauma, and we really want to be in a place where those boundaries and that self-care, that structure that you get from peer support is so important. So similarly to you, Alejandro, learning a lot from youth, because as I'm watching them practice what I'm teaching them, I'm realizing, wow, or like the skills that I'm showing them or modeling, how important it is that I'm practicing this for myself. How important it is to not just sponge in and realize that a big part of peer support, you want to have that empathy and you want to be able to listen with that, but you got to be able to separate and realize that, like we talked about earlier, it is their journey and I have my journey. And both are important, both are on their path. But I think how I overcame those struggles, because I used to soak it all in and then go home and like I couldn't think about anything else except for what that youth had experienced in the day. I think what I ended up learning, again, we will cover so much in these sessions, but the wellness wheel activity that we do, and seeing in an area of my wellness how low it was and how important it was to me, though, that grew, and that putting some of that value back into me and practicing really honestly, like intimately and beautifully, self-love and self-care. And what I do want to say, just out of full transparency, is that's a journey. That's not something that happened, because, I went through a training one day and all of a sudden I was, no, it's like that is a process I'm still going through, right? Like even with friends, like don't absorb it all. It's, you got to have that level of.
It's that fortunate and also unfortunate lifelong lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
I love what you were talking about with like being a sponge, because I feel like so many new peer supports tend to do that because they don't know how to separate where we've all got big hearts. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Right. So like, it's so hard to like not go home carrying everybody's story. But I feel like, and this is something I think we can talk about in later podcasts, it's just how important it is to have those boundaries with ourselves of what we're willing to take home with us and what we have to leave with work and trust and just their process, right? Because it's a huge learning lesson for sure.
I think that was something that I struggled with a lot too, was my sense of compassion fatigue.
Mm.
Right.
Like I would go really hard into work of just like I'm the one who is supposed to be here for all of the youth when that's not my job. I'm supposed to provide an entire support system. It can't just be me, no matter how much they confide in me. So like that compassion fatigue and burnout and leaving work at work and trying not to take it home is a huge thing that I learned in this position as well.
Mm-hmm.
How long would you all say, like, obviously that was a skill set that each of us had to learn over time. How long would you say it took? Like, was that something that happened like first, month? Would it take like a year? Just thinking about our listeners out there who could be going through that right now and are maybe wondering, everybody's journey is different, but maybe wondering like, I wonder how long that took for folks.
Yeah. I think mine took probably about a year and a half. I had to go through some pretty hard things with youth before getting to the point of just having even the awareness with myself of, oh, actually, I am bringing this home a lot. Oh, this is affecting me outside of work. Okay. And so having that acknowledgement, that awareness helped me to learn how to carry their stories and then how to take better care of myself when I'm out of work so that I can tend to my own wellness, my own self-care.
That's tough because my inner critic tells me that like absolutely no, like the small voice in my head. So I felt like I was never in tune with it, no matter how much I helped like my fellow coworkers or anyone else that was on the team. No matter how much I helped them, if I was put in that situation, I would be like, dude, you have no idea what the hell you're doing.
Right.
So it's always like a weird duality where I know where I'm doing if I'm helping someone, but if I'm in that instance, everything I've ever done ever is wrong. So getting past that, I felt like on paper secured within my position at the time after about a year and a half, a year and a half. I didn't fully get comfortable with it until I left.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's an interesting topic because I feel aware. I also feel like sometimes what they call like lizard brain, right? Like sometimes I feel like that is still very much, and I have to almost be aware of that and change action. And when that doesn't happen, it's like have grace. And something while I was listening to both of you that was kind of just touching my heart was, thank goodness we have each other. I think that's peer support and peer support on top of peer support, right? Yeah. Like we train it, we teach it, we live it. And because we have our little micro community here, we're able to kind of check that in each other too, I think. And like we're able to kind of push each other and support each other in those ways. And so I would hope that, folks out there, that you have your communities, right? And so if you don't, then maybe that should be a goal to think about is like, are you making sure that your cup is getting filled? And how are you really making sure that, if you aligned today with some of the stuff that we talked about and you feel like, oh man, I am experiencing that currently. I feel like I'm taking everything home. If that's you, here you have some folks who have been there and really want to encourage you to know that it's not going to be forever and you will learn the skill sets and you're in the process of learning right now, which is awesome.
Yes, it's a journey. It's okay to be on
It's
it.
a journey, yeah.
It's one of those things where you have to learn by doing. And like, I hate feeling like a failure or not knowing what I'm doing.
Right.
So being in this position has got me comfortable with being uncomfortable in that sense. Like I don't have to know everything. I just know that I have to be here. So whatever I can do to remain here in the most genuine way possible, I am going to do that.
That's very empowering.
Yeah. Life does require us to do that, to show up even when it's hard, right?
Yeah.
So it's also a great thing to like also be modeling with our youth too, that like it can be really scary. It can make us uncomfortable and like we can still show up. We can still be there and just be who we are. It's usually what most people or what is actually required of us is just to be ourselves.
Man, that is so interesting.
That's all we ask for anyone that we come in contact. Just be you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be you, right? Be authentic, And I guess learning a lot, like learning through your position, obviously I'm hearing from you all and from myself, like what benefits we've gained from testing out the tools, testing out, offering something like peer support to somebody, or showing up for ourselves, showing up for our friends and our family and our partners. I think we're becoming the change that we have been wanting to see.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
And by role modeling that too.
Yeah.
Be proud to be unapologetically you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love it. What was that tagline earlier? Like about living authentically?
Yeah, was it?
Oh man, it was the tweet too. We even made that the tagline.
I know, it's the tagline.
I have a small brain in terms of memory. In terms of memory, I lose my keys daily. It's a problem.
I get that. It has to have a home. I've learned that. Like they have to have a home in my home. Otherwise,
somehow I evict it every day.
Awesome. Well, I think we're wrapping it up for this podcast. So we just want to invite folks to tune in to our future podcast. This one got to about an hour. Our future ones might be closer to 30 minutes. And we will have a total of 6 sessions. 6. So that's awesome. And then today we were going to wrap it up with something that we do in our training. It's called Rose, Thorn, Bud. And see if my co-friends here. My co-friends.
My co-homies.
My co-homies. They're my
homies. Co-homies.
I don't know what I was trying to say.
Love it.
They're my colleagues. They're my friends. Like what?
Co-hosts.
Co-hosts also. Yeah. If you want to tell what Rose, Thorn, Bud is and share yours.
Yeah. So how I've looked at it is it's something that I am looking forward to, something that is a challenge and something that is good. So the rose would be the good part.
Yeah.
I really liked how this just turned out. Like this was a conversation. This was supposed to be the practice episode and it just turned into one. I like that. It was great. The bud is something that I'm looking forward to, and it's really to see how this is going to flourish and what other conversations we're going to have in the perspective that I'm going to like shift or see something from a different lens. And then the thorn, which is the things that are tough. I would say the mic, everything setting up was a lot. It seems like great. And I'm glad that it looks great. Yeah. A lot of work went into it and it was tough.
Yeah.
Thank you for that hard work, both of you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So my rose, something that is good. Well, I'm going to be going on vacation for a week. Whoop. So that'll be really nice. And a part of that is going back to old stomping grounds and getting delicious food back in Detroit. I'm so excited.
Yay.
I'm jealous, actually.
Super stoked. The bud, so something that is new. Honestly, the podcast is new, kind of setting up, learning some of the equipment, all of that is new. But it's a good new because it's like technical and creative, and I love that. And the thorn. Oh gosh. I think my thorn is just learning how to balance workflow with self-care needs and time for social and everything. I think probably a lot of people can like relate to that. It's hard to balance all the things that one wants to do.
Please tell me when you figure that out.
Yeah.
I would love
You'll be on my email
answer.
list.
Thank you.
If anybody out there has figured that out, you are to write into us. No.
Yeah, we got to know the secret to the universe here.
Let's see. So my rose, so something good, 100% is going to be this podcast. It's going to be this team that you all see or hear. We've just cultivated a culture that I'm very proud to be a part of. And yeah, so I'm going to do my thorn in the middle because I want to end on my bud. But the thorn, you know what? It is definitely going to be inner critic. That voice in the head that's just like, you are whack. Trying not to like let that win and listening to my inner defender instead. The bud, so something new. I am proud to say this. I'm newly choosing to live authentically in the sense of like really knowing my own identity as a queer woman. And so that is new for me. And that is something that I am just really, it's new because it's like I'm actually living in it and wanting to be authentic to myself and not be so scared of new experiences and stuff. So
hell yeah.
Yay.
Claiming who you are. I love
Let's
it.
go.
I love it.
Authenticity
Snap
vibes.
If I could snap. Oh, Look at that. All right.
Oh, there you go. So our next podcast, we are going to talk about.
I believe it's going to be talking about the wellness wheel, and then also forgot what it was. I'm going to be honest. Crisis and safety planning.
Yes.
It's going to be the wellness
I'm like,
wheel.
don't ask me.
So yeah, make sure you guys follow us and find us on social media. We are on Instagram as the Youth Era. And we are on TikTok as Youth Era. So please just come follow us, check us out. If you want to get a hold of us, that's where you could DM and ask for Alejandro, Mordekai, or Crissy. We are Youth Era. And we'll see you next time.
We're stoked to be here. See y'all later.
Love you guys.
Bye.